Herburt stood before the king's table and served. The princess spoke to her father. "Sir, will you give me a gift if I requested it of you?" And the king asked, "What are you going to request? Everything is at your disposal that you wish to own in my kingdom." And she answered, "I wish you to give me this courteous table servant as my servant." And the king answered, "You shall have the servant, but I promised you the fulfillment before I knew what you would ask." And when the feast was over, the princess returned to her castle, and young Herburt traveled with her, and was supposed to serve her now. Herburt now sent 12 knights back to Bern to tell King Thidrek that it had come about that he would now be able to speak with her. He added that he had seen her, and that she was the most beautiful of all women, as had been said. And the other 12 knights remained there, and were supposed to wait on how his mission turned out. And now the messengers traveled back to Bern, and told King Thidrek all of this news, and he was pleased about their journey. Herburt spoke often with Hild, the daughter of King Artus, and he told her that King Thidrek, his uncle, had sent him to her with the mission of asking for her hand. And she asked, "What kind of man is Thidrek of Bern, and what does he look like?" And Herburt answered, "King Thidrek is the greatest of warriors in the world, and the most generous person. And if you will become his wife, you shall lack neither gold, nor silver, nor treasure." She answered, "Can you draw his face on this wall?" And he answered, "Lady, I can draw with my hands, so that a man would recognize King Thidrek, who had seen him before." He drew a large and frightening face on the wall and said, "Lady, look here at the face of Thidrek of Bern, and may God help me, if his face is not really much more frightening." She replied, "May God not be so angered with me that this frightening devil would take me." And she continued, "Sir, why are you wooing me for the hand of King Thidrek of Bern, instead of for your own hand?" Herburt spoke, "I shall carry out the mission for King Thidrek as he commanded. But if you do not want to have him, then I will gladly ask for you myself, if you wish to have me. Even though I am not a king, all of my family is highborn, and I have enough gold and silver to give you, and I fear no man, neither King Artus, nor his man, nor Thidrek of Bern, nor any man in the world, and I shall do any sort of thing as you wish." She answered then, "Sir, of all men I have seen, I would choose you first. I do not know anything about King Thidrek, except that he is more powerful than you are, but I wish to have you, and not him." And before they ended their discussion, they put their hands together and gave each other oaths they would not part until death. Herburt now remained in her hall for some time, before he spoke one day in the morning to the princess. "Lady, I would advise that we ride out of the city before the king becomes suspicious of us." She said that he should decide everything about her, and that she would follow him all her life. And so he took 2 horses and saddled them, one for himself and one for her. They rode from the castle quickly to the forest. And when the guardsmen who were guarding the city walls saw them riding, they suspected who might be accompanying Herburt, and they went quickly to the king and told them what they had seen. When the king heard that, he sent men to the princess's castle. And when the messengers became aware that the princess had ridden away and that Herburt had gone with her, they quickly went back to the king's hall and told the king what they had found out. The king called for his knight Hermann and bade him ride after Herburt, and not to return home until he had the head of Herburt to give the king. Hermann quickly took his weapons and his horse, and he had 30 knights riding with him, along with 30 squires carrying weapons and birnies, and they all rode the road that Herburt had taken earlier. They came so near that Herburt could see them, and he spoke to his lady. "The king's knights are riding after us. The king will think that you have gone away without much honor, and because of this, he will have sent his knights so that they should serve you and both of us." She answered in this fashion: "Sir, they will have a different mission than you said, because they will be wanting to have your life." He answered, "Lady, why should they seek the life of an innocent man? And if that is their mission, as you say it is, then may God help me that I shall not die before these men for no reason, but I shall not run away any longer." He now dismounted and took her down and bound the horses to a tree. He lay down beside the princess and took her maidenhood. And a short time later, Hermann, the kinsman of King Artus, and his men arrived, and Herburt said that they should be welcome. But Hermann answered that he would never receive a truce, and he continued, "Tell me, you evil dog, before you die, and may God help you, that you do not lie. Has Hild retained her maidenhood?" And Herburt answered, "When the sun went up this morning, she was a maiden. Now she is my wife." Hermann rode at him and aimed his spear at his chest. But at the same moment, Herburt drew his sword and cut the spear shaft in two. The second blow struck Hermann and split his helmet, his birnie, and his neck asunder, and he fell dead to the ground. He immediately dealt another knight a blow in the thigh that cut off his leg, and he fell off to the side of the horse. He struck at the third one, and a very hard battle ensued for a long time, until 12 knights and 14 squires were killed. The ones who remained all fled back to the city. But Herburt had 11 great wounds, and his shield and birnie were cut apart and made useless. Hild now took her cloth and wiped off his wounds. After that, he got on his horse, and they rode for a long way until they found a king. Herburt remained with him a long time, and was made a duke in his army, and he had great honor there, and there are many great stories to be told of him. It happened one time that King Thidrek made a journey north through the mountains, and he was accompanied by Fasold and Thetleif the Dane. They had 16 knights with them, and they traveled until they came to a castle called Fields, where he was well received, along with his men. And the castle was ruled by King Drusian's 9 daughters, whose mother had died of the grief she had received when Ecca was killed. Thidrek told them that he wished to ask for the hand of the eldest daughter of King Drusian, who was called Gudilinda. The second sister should go to Fasold, and the third to Thetleif the Dane. The daughters of King Drusian did not wish to refuse this honor, and so they accepted. A great and rich feast was prepared, and at this feast King Thidrek and Fasold and Thetleif the Dane all married. And this broke the promise that had been made to the daughter of Sigurd the Greek. This feast lasted 9 days, and it increased every day, so that more was offered each day than had been offered on the previous one. Fasold and Thetleif were now placed over the kingdom that had belonged to King Drusian, and King Thidrek made them both dukes, and he himself rode home to Bern, along with his wife Gudilinda. When he came home, he ruled over his kingdom. And thus, we have arrived at the end of part number 41 of the Thidrekssaga. An escape from Attila's royal seat in Soest, and a fight with Högni, the Niflung, will be subject of part 42, which will be called Valdere and Hildigun. Thanks for tuning in, and see you again next time, back here, inside the walls of Sagenheim.